Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Rant, where I am just going to pick a random topic, usually relating to video games, but it could be related to anything in Northern geek culture. And then I'm just going to sit here and lay out some facts and talk about a few things. This week, I'm going to compare two of the big esports giants, League of Legends and Dota 2, and I want to talk about some things that I find interesting about the two that have really set a huge line in the difference of the games and in my opinion, will cause Dota 2 to rise in success if Riot doesn't adapt to it for League of Legends. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the TI-83. TI-3 was this weekend, and that's Dota 2's big tournament. It was really big. It was my first time seeing one, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. It was so much fun. The game itself was good. The players were great. I saw really unique stuff, and I didn't even know what to to expect going into it. But then I ended up just really enjoying what I could watch. Of course, I had to work all weekend, so I missed a bunch of it. But what I did watch live was great. But um, to go into that though, how I watched it was actually in client, which really blew my mind. But we'll get to that in a minute because before I want to talk about in client, I want to talk about the primaries to watching one of these tournaments for either Dota 2 or for League of Legends. So we're going to take a look at Riot Spectate UI because this is important. This is what you're going to see when you look at a tournament from Riot Games. So I'm going to go and I picked this game because it had Mandan in it, and I freaking Mandan is awesome, and he's playing Rammus, who's my favorite champ. So we're going to take a look at this one real quick as soon as everything gets loaded in. Alright, so this is Riot Spectate UI. On each side you have each team, the red and the blue, or purple if you are playing with standard UI. I play as colorblind because I don't know, I like the red better. I don't know why it's not just default that way. But with this UI, it's very well. I like Riot UI. I got the mini map on the right. I have the overall stats on the bottom, which is CS, kills, and items. I can always see what's going on in these three categories at the bottom anytime I want to. And then if I click on this, I can see the gold gain, how much they have, and how much they've earned so far. So I have all the main stats right here at the bottom, easily viewable. Uh, just anytime I want it. I don't have to worry about extra things, pushing extra hotkeys, it being popped out to the side. I have a cool vision of the view. Nothing is really blocked here. I can see exactly what I want to see. And then I can also have all this information at the bottom. On the top, I have both teams' overall goals, which is very important in League of Legends. Towers slain, which right now is 0-0. And then team kills, which is even at 7-7. This is also important information for League of Legends because this really kind of suggests the flow about the game in general. League of Legends is really big about gold. The more gold you have, chances are the better you're going to do. Once you hit a certain point, there is no real way that your team is going to come back if you're at a big enough gold disadvantage. This game, the gold is even, so it's a pretty even game overall. But once you hit like a 3,000, 4,000 gold lead, it really matters, and it's going to be really hard to win fights, especially team fights, if the other team's just not making super big mistakes. Okay, so down here on the bottom left we have character stats. At any time I can click on any portrait of anyone alive. I can't click on, that's a mistake, I can dead people. But anyone alive, I can click on the portrait, and I can see their stats, their items, their actual attack and defensive stats, and their abilities, which ones they've skilled up, the summoner spells, and the cooldowns. Up, I can see the stats on all cooldowns, all major cooldowns, the ultimates, and summoner spells. And below this, I have the camera options. I have directed camera. I can choose to see fog of war or no fog of war. I can choose to see a particular player's camera. Or I can do a manual camera where I can take control. The beauty of the directed camera in League of Legends is that if I want to, I can take control and move around and see what's going on. And then after a few seconds, it will automatically kick back to directed camera without me having to hit any extra buttons or go through any extra menus. I also have other fog of war options. I can see all red, all blue, so I can just anytime I can eliminate any fog of war I don't want to see, just so I can see vision. Like if I wanted to see what the blue team's vision or the red team's vision was, that's it. So up top, they can see the blue bus being stolen. They can see this area down here. They have no idea what's going on anywhere else. And then I have the interface visibility. At any time, I can turn off everything: the scoreboard, team frames, individual team frames at that, minimap, the scoreboard, the chat, and the target frame. And all these are hotkeyed too. I don't know the hotkeys because I don't use it like a professional caster, but they are hotkeys, so you can use it like a professional caster. So I really like Riot's frames. It gives me everything I want to know at pretty much any time. The only thing it doesn't show me is an experience graph, but it's really obvious in League of Legends because the level difference isn't as big and matters a lot more than does in Dota. I've seen people watching these Dota tournaments this week, and I've seen them come back from the entire enemy. Their team is out levels you, and they still win team fights. I don't know how it happens, but it definitely does. So levels aren't as important for every character as it is in, say, League of Legends, where a 1 to 2 level advantage could usually spell as a loss. Alright, so this is League of Legends layout, and like I said, I like it a lot. Possibly even better than Dota 2s. But we're going to take a look at Dota 2s here in just a second, and we'll compare the two. Alright guys, we're back. I'm right here, I'm looking at the Dota 2's main board. One thing I just want to point out that I will put above every game above League of Legends is that they actually have a legit home screen inside the game client. It is not that crappy Adobe Air client. That Adobe Air client sucks. That being said, let's take a look at the spectate stream for Dota 2. Let's find, okay, this brand new game. This is a new game. It's only been on for about 5 minutes. Oh, this one's about to start. That's okay, we'll go with this one. It doesn't matter how far long the game is. Alright, so we're going to go into this game, and we're going to take a look at Dota's interface. So now we're looking at Dota 2's spectate interface. The thing about Dota 2 spectate interface is it is just the game interface. The upside of this is that you get basically the same look you would get while playing the game, so it'll all feel very familiar. The downside of this is to get all your game stats, you have to basically go through them individually and see everything separately and go through them a little bit. Now it's all hotkeyed, which is great. That's exactly how we want it. But it's all separated into these different categories instead of just removing this down here and throwing it down here like in League. That is one advantage I think League has. I don't need to see all of this information about a character. But it's very important to note that just like League of Legends, I can see every ability. And since League of Legends has such a not League of Legends, Dota 2 has such a huge burden of knowledge for, especially for new players. This is big, especially since I can watch this game. I can watch any tournament game in the client. As far as I know, anyways. I have watched every match that I've watched for TI3 this week live. I watched in the client. This is important because as a new player, if I'm just for the first time watching a tournament and I don't know all these characters and I see one picked, I now have the ability to go through here and read exactly what these abilities are, figure out why they're leveling up his abilities, and get a better sense of how the game is played. This is hugely important for the burden of knowledge for Dota 2, and it provides a much better way of getting into the game and learning more about the game and becoming more interested. Because watching a game that you don't know anything about is not only is it boring, it's frustrating sometimes, especially with MOBAs because there's a lot of stuff that happens, and when you have big team fights, you have no idea what's going on. So that's one thing I think that Dota 2 has the hugest advantage over, and Riot needs to really think about this. The ability to just get in and watch the game in the client and read what these items do, see what these abilities do. If Dota 2 were to give me the same kind of screen that, say, League has, where I have most of these stats right here, I would probably be at I would easily give it hands down to Dota 2 having a better esports setup than League of Legends. Easily. Now, that being said, again, Dota 2 is perfect. I don't need all of this information at the bottom. I could easily do it just like League with the little block over here and I can mouse over it. Also, when you're reading spells, they tend to disappear when you're spectating a game, so you have to mouse over them several times to read the whole thing, and it's super annoying sometimes. Also, again, all the stats, like all these stats could be won. Like if like in League of Legends, all these stats are right here. But there's also a few other things that League doesn't have. They don't have the gold chart and the experience chart, so you can see which team has the advantage and how long they've had it, and when it spikes back up towards a different direction. This is a kind of important because it's not like League where a higher experience will automatically win, and it's not like League where more gold will automatically win. There are really sick plays you can pull off which can swing this in your favor quickly, from what I've seen. Now, that being said, let's move on to the actual competitive aspect of Dota 2 and League of Legends. Dota 2 has a very unique presence compared to League, well that there are so many different lane comps. I've seen 1-1-3s, I've seen 2-1-2s, I've seen 1-1-2 jungle, just like League of Legends 1-1-2 jungle. I've seen 1-1-1s with two jungles. I've seen roaming gankers. There's so many different ways to play this game competitively that the lane matchups that the same old lane matchups that you see constantly in League just don't exist. And it's a huge deal. Because of this, they've actually pulled the numbers. 90 champions out of the 120 or 30 that are available for Dota 2 were picked in just the final tournament. That is a huge amount of... It's just a huge selection, and it just really makes the game unique and diverse. And because of this, it makes the game more interesting, and that's something else that League has struggled with through the years. Now, one advantage of this is that Dota 2, or Dota 2, yeah, Dota 2 is just really a carbon copy of Dota. They haven't had to change a whole lot, so Dota was kind of like the beta for Dota 2, and they were able to get a lot of the problems fixed then. And because of that, it kind of puts the advantage on the side of Dota 2 just for the time they've had. But still, League has had a lot of trouble balancing out every champion to get them playable. They've put a lot of work into it. Remember, please remember that. League, Riot puts a lot of work into balancing out League. They do champion reworks, buffs and nerfs every week. They're constantly looking at champions that are seeing low play rates and figuring out how to get them higher play rates. Sometimes people don't agree. Most of the times when they rework a champion, it's for the better. I mean, if you look at it, Ryze became a lot better after his rework. Katarina, Evelyn, though Evelyn is in a bad place now because of nerfs since her rework. But most of the time, champions do better after the rework. I think there is, Karma is generally still in a bad spot, and people weren't super happy with. God, what was the other one? Oh yeah, the Master Yi rework hasn't been very great either. I personally dislike it, and then I'm just like a lot of other people. Well, when I see one of my champions I love to play on board for rework, I'm very skeptical of whether or not it's going to work out. Skarno has been talked about for reworks, and he's a champion I really love. And as soon as I see he's on board, despite the fact that they do good with a lot of reworks, I really am afraid to see what happens to Skarno. I'm afraid that they're gonna hold him, even though he's not played. He's not even. I even agree that he's not that viable. But I don't really want to see him just reworked. The same goes for Yorick, who I'm not. I'm kind of iffy with Yorick. I'm not a super huge fan of him, anyways. Zerath, I don't want to see him touch Zerath, and I know he's on board for a rework. And I'm afraid that Rammus is going to come up in this too eventually. And he is by far my favorite champion. And while he is a bit underplayed right now, it's more just that the jungle is not balanced for him, and not that he's bad. That being said, Riot spends a ton of time when it comes to game balance between seasons. Not always for the best. I will admit that the recent jungle changes, while have been good for some champions, have really hurt others. But they are at least trying, so people cannot discredit Riot for completely for the game not being balanced for a large number of the champs. I mean, of the 120, I think it is, maybe 130 now, champion pool, only about 50 see competitive pick. And that's what we're trying to get here. 90 for DotA, and this just in one tournament, and only about 50, maybe 60 in all of LCS since LCS started up. That being said, Riot has really embraced the idea of esports being a very common thing. They've done a lot for esports, even if it wasn't them actually trying to help all of esports, and it was really just them helping themselves. Most of the best stuff that happens in the world happens because someone's trying to help themselves, not necessarily because they're trying to help other people. That being said, though, Riot has made it a lot easier for esports to be recognized as an actual sport and actually get players into the country to compete because of the work they did with getting sports recognized as an official sport by the U.S. government. They're the first sport that I know, or esport that I know of, to sit down and say, okay, we're going to create a sports league like the NFL, where games will premiere weekly and people will watch them weekly, and the matches will add up and lead towards the big championship. I don't necessarily agree with the overall way they do it. I don't like the midsummer drafts and stuff like that, but I I definitely have to admit that Riot has done a good job of helping to move esports for all esports farther along, even if that's not what they meant to do. If it was just a casual result of what they of just trying to help themselves. Um, StarCraft 2, which is one of the probably the first biggest esport because it's one of the oldest. Um, they have kind of caught on and said, "Hey, the idea of actually having a sports league was a good one." So they started the WCS, which I know is kind of in a rocky spot, but at least they're trying. That's what it really comes down to. And if they listen and they try to fix it, things will get better. Um, that being said, it really comes down to everyone kind of working to make things better. And in that case, I think Riot actually has a really strong presence in that they're always trying to make things better. I've just kind of got into Dota, so I'm not really sure if that's a thing. If it is, we're going to kind of see it coming up soon because two of the big stories for the TI3 was some people call it a glitch, some people say it's legit, some people think that the team shouldn't have done it. But this champion here, which I'm so glad I got lucky, the hero here Pudge. Pudge has this ability called Meat Hook. And what Meat Hook does is Meat Hook allows you to throw this hook and grab the first thing it hits, be it a enemy or an ally, and pull it to you. If it's an enemy, it'll do damage and stun them. If it's an ally, they'll just pull it to you and they're safe. And then there's another champ, which actually happens to be here too. I'm going to bet that they picked these champions because of TI3. Chin has the ability to actually send someone back to their friendly well. What happened at the tournament was that Pudge would meat hook, and then Chin would send that meat hook person, would send Pudge back to the well, pulling the meat hook person with them, and then they basically take tons of well damage. And people are like, this is a bug, it shouldn't happen, it shouldn't be allowed to happen, it's bad. I am not in the same feeling that it's bad. I think that kind of unique play is something that should definitely exist, and it's always disappointed me that Riot has been against the idea of players being able to basically push the limits of an ability and possibly even take control of the fight even if against their teammates' wishes. Riot would never allow you to be able to throw a meat hook at your friends and pull them to you. Now they've kind of done stuff to help this. They created um, ah Thresh. They created Thresh, and what Thresh does is he throws a lantern that gives a shield to his allies in that area, and one ally can click the lantern and fling themselves to Thresh. So they've kind of done stuff to help fix that kind of stuff, but there are still so many other abilities that don't exist. My favorite character since I've started playing Dota 2 um, is gotta be Vengeful Spirit because of her ability just to switch places with allies. All enemies, but mostly allies. I've used it so many times with, say, Pudge. When he throws the hook, I've flopped places, and instead of them landing there, he'd land like right there. And he'd be so far away from where he'd want to be. Obviously, that wouldn't be necessarily the best one because he'd be able to run right back out there. But you can often just throw people in worse places with that kind of combo, and Riot would never let that kind of combo exist. When they released Thresh, me and my buddy Shui were hoping, kind of curious, if Skarner, who has the ability to grab an enemy and pull them around with him, um, if he could grab Thresh's lantern when he does that and basically fling both of them back to Thresh. He can't do it. And I'm really disappointed that that's not an ability that they allowed to happen, because it's a unique ability that exists between two champions. Synergy like that just doesn't exist anywhere else, and it's just something I'm really disappointed in seeing that they just don't let people do. Riot is very big about this no trolling thing, and because of that, they've also limited other abilities. And if you want this to be taken seriously on a competitive level, you have to kind of allow your ban system to take care of the trolls who are going to ruin the experience of possible troll-like abilities, like the ability to switch places with an ally and possibly put them in more danger than they were already in. But that being said, Riot is kind of working though, but they really got to let go. I want to be able to have a Vengeful Spirit like character that can flip-flop places with an ally and possibly initiate a fight or save an ally or put me in danger, or act like I'm in danger, then flip-flop with an ally and it turn out to be an engage. Let me flip-flop with an Amumu and let him ulti into a team without even having to use Flash or his stun. Now, that being said, both games have a unique competitive level. One of the biggest things I hear is that Dota 2 is more complicated, or not more complicated, it's more complex than League. Dota 2 is harder to play and more complicated than League. That doesn't necessarily mean more complex, and that doesn't necessarily mean better. There's a lot of games that are hard to play just because they're badly done. Now, I don't think Dota 2 is badly done. I'm loving the game. But I think you get what I mean when it's not necessarily better. League has some things in it that a lot of Dota 2 players don't even know exist. As an example, tower diving in Dota 2 is so much easier than in League of Legends. I tower dive so much because I can get away with it, because the towers don't immediately switch and destroy me. So it's a big difference. It's not a bad thing that towers destroy you in League. It just makes the game different, and it's just a whole different thing to think about. Tower diving strats have become a much bigger deal in League because of how hard it is to pull off. One thing I will give to Dota, though, is that Dota has a lot of activatable items. This is something that League has talked about wanting to do, but they've got to pull it off right. They want to get rid of aura items and have more activatable items. If all your activatable item is doing is giving stat buffs, though, it's not really a better item. I want items like in Dota 2 that allow me to heal my allies, that allow me to restore mana, place shields, polymorph people. It would open up the support pool so much if that could happen. That being said, the support pool in Dota is almost infinite because every champion can support. Almost. I mean, if you have a good stun and can have a good early game, you're pretty much a support. You're gonna start the game off doing a lot of damage into the mid game, and then come late game, your damage is probably gonna fall off, but the carry's gonna take over, and that's the philosophy. Which, again, I don't think is necessarily better. Um, as an example, I just got sidetracked. I don't think it's necessary for carries to carry so hard to come late game, but even League has it that way. The big deal here, though, is that um, the supports just don't feel useless. You don't sit on 0 gold and be like, oh my god, I just can't really do anything with drop walls all game. That is something I hate about the LCS, is watching games where there are 3 items bought: boots, sightstone, and walls. There's got to be more than that to make it interesting, to make it fun to play. No one wants to play support when that's all they see is people dropping wards the entire game. Now, luckily, that doesn't exist in Dota 2, but there are things about Dota 2 I don't like. Um, Mages don't scale well come the mid to late game. There's no ability power. I love the idea of ability power and attack power, and it's separating the ball between the two. That mages can actually become stronger mages, and they don't just stay the same strength once they use all their cooldowns. I mean, obviously, once they use all the cooldowns in both games, they've lost a lot, but they don't immediately lose power just because the game has gone on and there's no items they can buy anymore. All the items are gonna do is increase their survivability so that they can cast more spells later on. I like that League has it so that my items will allow my mage to hit harder and do more damage. But again, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that Dota doesn't have that. It is a difference in the games, and that's what's important here. And what people need to realize, that when they try to compare the two and say what game is better, there really isn't a better game when it comes to actual gameplay. It is really all about what you enjoy more. They'll really everyone will talk about Dota 2 being League of Legends being a clone of Dota, and Dota 2 just being basically the final version of what was the alpha game for Dota. That Dota was just the alpha game for Dota 2. And it's true, it really is. But League has done enough to separate itself to make it a more unique game than just a clone of Dota, and I'm really happy with that. And so it comes down to the ability to watch. What's more fun to watch? What's better to watch? The ability to watch the game inside of the client, still have commentators, still allow the commentators to control the camera, is a huge deal, and it's something that League really needs to consider, especially since it doesn't even have a replay system. It's working on it. It's been working on it for a while. They finally have the spectate system. They have the better spectate system, but the ability to not be able to learn by actually being able to see abilities, see items, take control of the camera, follow a specific player. Maybe you just want to follow one specific player. In that Pudge game, I would love to have followed that Pudge around the entire game, and I did when I watched the replay. I just followed around Pudge because the Pudge was the fun one to watch. He was the one doing everything. I'll go to the player perspective of Pudge. Not only can I see Pudge, I can see everything he's doing. This is Pudge in control, and I'm watching him in control of the game. So what he's doing, what he's looking at, I can kind of put together his thought process as he's doing this. League needs to consider something like this. The spectate system is great. Now take it to the next level. There was a comment by Total Biscuit that League of Legends will eventually eclipse Dota 2. That Dota 2 will eventually eclipse League of Legends now that Dota 2 is live and no longer considered a beta. I don't completely agree with this, because even though it was a beta, everyone who wanted to play it could really play. I honestly don't know anyone who couldn't play League of Legends during the beta. I was giving away keys. I was getting keys faster than I can give them away. I think when the game went live, I still had 8 keys in my inventory. So anyone who said that they couldn't play the game while it was a beta, you really weren't trying hard enough. It was so easy to get keys for the beta. So it's not like it being live is going to be a huge difference because everyone who's wanted to play can play. I think the big deal here was that it's the third one, teams were more solidified, people were more into it. You got a lot more advertising. And that's kind of why this most recent tournament was so successful. I do think it's going to keep getting successful, and that if Riot doesn't continue to evolve those standards, it might pass. And not only might it pass, it probably will pass if the league doesn't improve the way they do things. But that's what Riot does, and to think that they just won't is completely silly. Not only that, but we don't actually. Does anyone really want to see either of these games die? No. Why would you? It's not holding you for one game, for both games to exist. Especially since Dota 2 is 100% free to play. You don't have to spend a dime to have the full play experience of Dota 2. And League of Legends is free to play, but you kind of have to pay for champions or unlock champions. So even if you want to play both, which I do, I can spend money on League and just play Dota. And Dota has its problems with its free-to-play model, don't get me wrong. They use a very similar hat system that TF2 uses, and the fact that I have to buy a $2.49 key, but the least amount of money I can spend is $5, and I've got freaking 2 cents left over after buying 2 keys, is annoying as balls. Freaking Valve, do something about that. But Riot has the same issue with Riot Points, in that no matter how many Riot Points you buy, you'll never be able to spend the exact amount, and it is so annoying. That being said, though, again, the games are free. You can play it without ever spending a dime, so it doesn't hurt you for either game to do well. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, quit hating on the other game, enjoy watching the games, and yeah, if you really enjoy watching both, talk about what you like that's better about the other one, because maybe that can end up being part of your game. If Dota 2 took in the better spectating UI of League of Legends, I would love it. If League of Legends made it so I could spectate a tournament game in client, I would love it. These are the things we need to be talking about, not what's better. Just get it done. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'll see you guys next time on Rant, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.